American boots on the ground? Is that the truth of the matter? Why aren't we being told? You are being told. Hello there, you 6.4 million awakening wonders. Thanks for joining me in this voyage to truth and freedom. Down in the submolecular realm, there is a great power organizing the apparently material realm. Let us access the deep forces and deep intelligence that organizes the biochemical world. Biology comes from somewhere. The cosmos comes from somewhere. Is it within you through your consciousness? Can you contact a great power? Of course you bloody well can. Let's educate ourselves now for the forthcoming revolution. I had a great conversation with Branko Marcetic, who told us exclusively that there are American boots on the ground in the Ukraine, that they're denying the truth, that they're making the Pentagon Papers part the all about the weird little kid, Buddy Texera, who made the revelations instead of about the truths that he revealed. Why is it that the mainstream media and the government are operating in lockstep to keep us dumb when we should be awakening, when we must awaken, when you feel your heart growing mightier by the day? Why do they want to crush this power within you? Why won't they let you be who you are? These are just some of the questions that will be answered by me and Branko Marcetic in the coming minutes. Stay to the end, let me know in the comments. Did I miss anything? And do you like Branko's hair? We are, like you, independent journalists, and we have a duty to take truth pretty bloody seriously. I'll congratulate you firstly on your hair today, and secondly, we'll move on to my first question. Gareth Roy is very excited to have you here. He believes you to be a rising star of the independent journalism scene, and he wants to frame you as one of our key voices on Stay Free Media. So just know that, Branko, before you even begin your answer, that you are loved and believed in and adored. Now, the US government misled the public on the war. Why are the mainstream corporate media more interested in going on about that lad's nickname being OG? Why are the New York Times involved in his capture and arrest like Scooby-Doo and the gang, or Lovejoy if you're British, instead of focusing on the content of the leaks, please, Branko?
I mean, this is basically a pattern that happens every time there's a major leak that exposes something politically inconvenient or embarrassing or even scandalous, particularly from the US government. I can give you a number of examples. I mean, basically, some of the biggest leaks in US history, you think about Daniel Ellsberg and the Pentagon Papers, you think about the various leaks that WikiLeaks put out under Julian Assange, the Snowden leaks, Chelsea Manning's contributions to the Assange WikiLeaks stuff. All of these people were, rather than, alongside, writing about the genuinely kind of scandalous and revelatory stuff that they revealed, at the same time, there was this obsession among certain segments of the press on, were these people, are they heroes or traitors? Are they good people? Let's talk about some of their misdeeds. Sometimes, misdeeds are completely imagined. In the case of Snowden, who's been accused of being a Russian and a Chinese spy and all this kind of stuff. And then also sometimes, very real misdeeds. I think Assange, the sexual assault allegations against Assange were credible. Obviously, this guy, this latest leaker, has this record of making offensive and racist comments and so on and so forth. But the entire time that we're talking about whether these people are good or bad and whether they are deserving of our respect or our valorization, we're not talking about the actual stuff that they revealed. In the case of WikiLeaks, it was evidence of war crimes by US and coalition forces in Iraq and other places. In this case, I mean, there's so much important that's come out of this leak. I would say number one, the fact that the Biden administration apparently does have boots on the ground, despite saying it would not deploy troops. It has, dozens of special forces personnel in Ukraine, as does the whole of NATO. I think it's saying like 97 people. And on top of that, I mean, there's this major revelation about how easily this war could have already spiraled into all-out, World War III or nuclear catastrophe. There was this incident last year where Russian and British pilots kind of got into a scrape over the Black Sea. We heard about it. There was a bit of alarm over it, but we didn't quite know the full details. Now it turns out that actually the Russian jet, the Russian pilot, misunderstanding instructions from radar operators, fired the missile at the British jet, and the missile malfunctioned and nothing happened. But I mean, if that had if that malfunction hadn't happened in the nick of time, this could have been a very different thing. I mean, this could have been absolutely disastrous. I mean, that's two things out of the many things that have come out. But these are very important topics to discuss in the context of this ever escalating war, and we don't talk about them because we're focused on, is this person good or bad?
Why can't the US be honest about the extent of their involvement in this conflict, plainly admitting that there are American personnel within Ukraine? And why can't the mainstream media hold them to account when these leaks are made? Why does this consensus to maintain one narrative exist, Branko?
I mean, unfortunately, in the US especially, the press has long been kind of more eager for escalation and kind of a more aggressive military posture from the Biden administration. I mean, if whatever you think about the Biden administration's policy to Ukraine, they have been relatively restrained compared to what the press has been asking. I mean, from the earliest days of the war, there were White House press corps people who were saying, basically, why won't you set up a no-fly zone, which, would have basically been the declaration of World War III, or, saying, why aren't you constantly pushing the administration to send more advanced, more escalatory weaponry to Ukraine, and so on and so forth. So I think for that segment of the media that kind of wants a more aggressive, confrontational posture from the United States government, it doesn't pay to talk about the risks. It doesn't pay to talk about, the way that the US government has actually misled the public around its already fairly deep involvement in this war. And I mean, for the Biden administration, of course, it wants to maintain this idea that, we're having a hands-off approach. This is not a proxy war. This is not a conflict between the US and Russia, or between NATO and Russia. We're merely providing support to Ukraine that it wants. We're not ourselves actively, belligerents in this war, because I think for domestic consumption, it convinces people that, hey, the US elite, the US officials have not sort of blundered the country into yet another potentially catastrophic war. And I think on the international stage, it has this benefit of making the United States seem like a kind of honest broker in this war, rather than, what Lula, the president of Brazil, recently said, which is that, it's been sort of encouraging the prolonging of the war that's been going on.
Why is Zelensky declaring war on dissent, centralizing nearly all of Ukraine's national TV networks? Why, if the leadership of Ukraine are on the side of righteousness, why can they not accommodate dissent, debate, and conversation? And obviously, I would apply that to the ongoing march towards censorship in our countries, Australia, England, America, all that. Why is there an unwillingness to accommodate dissent and debate? What does that indicate? But start off by telling us what's going on specifically with Zelensky in Ukraine.
Sure. I mean, to put it briefly, the sort of authoritarianism that existed in Ukrainian politics, which long predates the invasion. Unfortunately, ever since the breakup of the Soviet Union, Ukraine, there's been several different struggles over the decades to kind of try and make it a more democratic, less corrupt country, grassroots movements. This has been a problem for a long time, and that was a problem under Zelensky. Before the war, but things really ramped up. There's been both anecdotal and also, if you look at the data, the prosecution data, there's just been an explosion of prosecutions, detainments, all this stuff against anti-war dissidents, or really just any dissidents of all kinds. What does that mean? I mean, it might mean that, you someone who criticized the Zelensky government within Ukraine for helping to making decisions that helped sort of lead to war. It might mean that you even support Russia. There are definitely people in Ukraine who, it's a small number, a small minority, but there are definitely people who support the war effort. It might mean criticizing the Zelensky government for some of its anti-democratic overreaches. It can also mean, things like just basically putting forward kind of left-wing ideology. A lot of leftists have been kind of caught up in the repression over there. The sum total of it is that basically there's been a crackdown on anything that kind of deviates from the official Ukrainian line, whether it's about the course of the war, the causes of the war, the fitness of the Ukrainian government, all this stuff. Whatever it is, if you're saying it and it's politically inconvenient to the government, you might get a knock on the door from the SBU. Now, in terms of why this is happening, I mean, there's two explanations. Number one, obviously, Ukraine's been invaded by a larger neighboring power. Any country that comes under foreign attack, under outside attack, and in wartime, you see typically a centralization of government power. You see things like censorship policies being put into place. It happened under Lincoln during the Civil War. I mean, it happened, just think about what happened with the United States after September 11 and how that kind of led to a centralization of a bunch of repressive powers. And so it's not surprising that Ukraine being under attack has kind of resorted to this very classic method of sort of control and unity during wartime. However, that's not the full story, because this was happening, like I said, long before, under multiple presidents, but ramped up under Zelensky too, who well before the war, when his approval ratings had plummeted, and he had actually faced some pretty bad outcomes in municipal elections around the country. Started to go after his opposition. He sanctioned a kind of a leading opposition bloc, and basically through that got rid of a bunch of opposition media. He started to look at banning parties and so on and so forth. And there were the mayor of Kiev, obviously now, everyone's very much united. But before the war, the mayor of Kiev got a knock on the door from the SBU as well, the sort of, security service of Ukraine, who went in and I think searched his apartment. And it was at the time read as a form of political intimidation against someone who might be a future Zelensky rival. So it's those two things combining. That there was already a trend towards authoritarianism under Zelensky's rule, but the war has, for multiple reasons, kind of made that just go to a far more extreme level than it was before.
Well, there you go. You're a little bit smarter now. Branko Marcetic, is he the new Matt Taibbi? Is he kind of another me, an Australian me? What is that accent that he's got? Let me know in the comments. Remember, give the video a like if that's your thing. And please, subscribe. We make these videos every day. Turn on the notification bell. You think the algorithm's going to tell you that there's revolutionary information available that's going to help you bring down big tech, that's going to help you bring down the mainstream media? Of course not. You got to go out there and fight for it, you hunter-gatherer, you. Please, if you enjoyed this video, have a look at either of these, but more important than any of that stuff, stay free.